The mud sticks to everything. Dark water from Lake Eola clings to the yellow tape, to the officer's boots, to the autumn grass that hasn't been cut in weeks. A badge lies face down in the dirt, still catching the weak Florida light. The numbers on it catch a reflection. No name visible. Just the weight of it there. Abandoned. Detective Raymond Cross stands at the perimeter, his jaw tight. He's been on this force for 30 years, and he knows what it means when a fellow officer ends up like this. Wrapped in her own police jacket. Bruised across her neck. The forensics team moves slow around the body, photographing everything, saying nothing. The radio crackles. Another missing person report 3 miles away. A bank robbery downtown. The city doesn't stop for one death, even if that death wears a uniform. But Detective Cross isn't thinking about the city. He's thinking about Linda Moore. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Officer Tasha Bryant was 23 days missing before they found her. 23 days of empty shifts, unanswered phones, and a locker that stood open in the precinct like a question nobody wanted to answer. And when they discovered her body near the water's edge, wrapped so carefully in the department-issued jacket that her own mother almost didn't recognize her, everything changed. Because Linda Moore wasn't just a colleague, she was the last person seen with Tasha. She was also the woman who loved her. The captain walks over to Detective Cross, clipboard in hand. His face looks carved from stone. "We have the timeline," he says. Surveillance footage shows Moore's car leaving the area at 11:47 p.m. Tasha's last text was sent at 10:53 p.m. Before that, he pauses. There are gaps, long gaps where both of them are off the grid. Detective Cross nods, but something doesn't sit right. He's learned to trust that feeling, the one that says there's more to the story than what the evidence is telling them. In his experience, the first suspect is rarely the guilty one. But the evidence here is loud. Text messages full of conflict. A car at the scene. A relationship that shouldn't have existed, hidden in the shadows of the department. What makes a hero become a suspect? What turns love into a weapon? The answer is waiting somewhere between Linda's fingerprints on Tasha's jacket and the digital record of a phone call that never should have happened. And as Detective Cross walks toward the medical examiner's van, he catches sight of something that makes him stop. A phone, waterlogged and cracked, sitting in an evidence bag. Inside that phone is a voice memo, time-stamped for the night Tasha disappeared. The label reads, "If anything happens to me." Detective Cross knows what's coming next. Will destroy someone. The only question is whether it'll be the right person. Linda Moore's hands steady as she fills out her intake paperwork at the Orlando Police Department. The pen doesn't shake. Her signature comes out clean, practiced. The same signature that's been on incident reports, arrest forms, and evidence logs for 34 years. But this time, it's different. This time, she's not a legend walking into a new precinct. She's a ghost trying to find solid ground. The captain, James Williamson, watches her from his office. 58 years old, graying at the temples, the look of a man who knows something about second chances because he's been waiting for one himself. "Welcome to Orlando," he says, when Linda finally sits across from him. "I read your file from Miami. Hell of a run." Linda doesn't look up. She knows what's in that file. She knows what people whisper about her. Decorated homicide detective. 13 commendations. One scandal that the department still won't fully explain. A case gone wrong. A superior officer making decisions that cost lives. Someone had to take the fall. Someone always does. "I'm ready to work," Linda says. Her voice is steady, controlled, a voice that has learned not to betray anything underneath. The precinct is modern, efficient, full of officers half her age, typing reports and answering phones with the energy she used to have. She walks past the gym on her second day and sees her. Officer Tasha Bryant, 23 years old, dark skin glistening under the fluorescent lights, hitting a punching bag with precision and purpose. Every hit lands exactly where she intends it to land. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Linda feels something shift in her chest, something she thought had rusted over years ago. Tasha notices her watching. Their eyes meet for just a second, but in that second is everything. Recognition, curiosity. A spark that shouldn't exist between a senior officer and a rookie, but definitely does. Tasha's hands are wrapped tight, the tape fraying at the edges. She's been here since dawn, practicing footwork, building muscle memory for a job that will test every part of her. Over the next few weeks, Linda and Tasha are paired for training shifts. It's professional. It's appropriate. Linda teaches Tasha how to read a scene, how to separate the important details from the noise, how to carry the weight of the job without letting it crush you. Tasha learns quickly. She asks good questions. She doesn't waste words. She understands that police work is about presence, not personality. Coffee breaks happen at the same diner 3 blocks from the precinct. Their patrol shifts line up more often than they should. Late nights in the car, driving through neighborhoods that sleep heavy, talking about fear and ambition and the cost of doing this job right. Linda finds herself saying things she hasn't said to anyone in years. Tasha listens without judgment, without trying to fix anything. She just listens. Then one night, driving back from a call at 3 a.m, Tasha says something that changes everything. "You know what I see when I look at you?" she asks. "Not what everyone else sees. I see someone who's still here, still trying, after everything. That takes something most people don't have." Linda's hands grip the steering wheel tighter. She doesn't answer right away. The radio chatter fills the silence. 2 miles pass. 3. Then Linda pulls into a parking lot behind a closed pharmacy, and they sit in the dark car while the engine cools. But what began as mentorship has already crossed a line neither of them intended to cross. The question now is whether they'll pull back before they fall too far, or whether they'll keep falling because the alternative, being alone again, feels like the worst choice. The beach on the north side of Orlando is empty at midnight. The sand is cold, and the ocean breeze cuts through the warm Florida air like a reminder that seasons change, that nothing stays the same. Linda and Tasha walk without touching, their shadows stretching long under the parking lot lights. Around them, the night holds its breath. "They're going to notice eventually," Tasha says. Her voice carries over the sound of the waves. "The department, the people at the precinct, someone's always watching." Linda stops walking. She looks at Tasha, really looks at her, and sees the weight that comes with being young and ambitious in a place that wants to control everything about you. "I know," Linda says. "And you're okay with that?" Tasha asks. There's no challenge in the question, just a search for truth. Linda turns toward the water. The truth is complicated. The truth is that she spent 20 years hiding who she was, building walls so high and so thick that by the time she finally got to Miami, there was nothing left of her that anyone could reach. And then there was the case. Then there was taking the fall for someone else's corruption. Then there was Orlando, a new beginning that felt like breathing underwater. Then there was Tasha. "No," Linda says finally. "I'm not okay with it, but I'm less okay with walking away from you." They drive to a motel off Route 92, the kind of place where people pay cash and nobody asks questions. The room smells like old carpet and disinfectant. The bed is small. The window faces the parking lot. And when they finally touch, really touch, not just hands brushing in the break room, it feels like the first honest thing Linda has allowed herself in years. The next morning, Linda sits at her kitchen table in her apartment and reads through case files while coffee gets cold in a mug. But her mind isn't on the files. It's on Tasha. On the way, Tasha laughed when the radio died in the patrol car. On the text message that came through at 2 a.m. "Can't sleep. Thinking about you." At the precinct, they maintain distance. Professional. Correct. But their eyes find each other across the briefing room. They pass files hand to hand, fingertips touching just long enough to feel the connection that nobody else can see. During a late shift, they help an elderly woman find her lost cat in a neighborhood complex. Tasha moves with such grace through the crowd, and Linda watches her work, the way she speaks to people, the way she listens, the way she makes strangers feel safe. This is who Tasha is underneath the uniform. This is what Linda sees that others miss. But the officers at the precinct have eyes too. One day, Officer Deshaun Morris leans against Linda's desk. "So," he says, his voice low, "you and the rookie. That's what's going on." Linda doesn't look up from her computer. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right," Deshaun says. "He's been on the force for 12 years. The kind of guy who notices everything because he's bored, and because boredom makes people dangerous, because it's totally normal for a 57-year-old veteran and a 23-year-old rookie to take all the same shifts and drive around at 3 in the morning talking about nothing." Linda's jaw tightens. "That's none of your business." "Maybe not," Deshaun says, standing up. "But it'll be everyone's business when the captain finds out. You know that, right? 2 officers, one above the other in rank, hiding something. The department doesn't look kindly on that kind of thing, especially not when it's—" He doesn't finish the sentence, but the implication hangs there in the fluorescent light. Especially not when it's 2 women. After he leaves, Linda sits with her hands flat on the desk, concentrating on her breathing. She's survived worse. She's taken falls before. But this time feels different, because this time there's someone else who could be destroyed alongside her. That night, Linda tells Tasha what Deshaun said. They're parked in an empty lot outside the city limits, and Tasha's response is immediate and fierce. "Then let them find out," Tasha says. "I don't care what they think. I don't care if they fire me. Linda, I'm tired of hiding." She reaches for Linda's hand, squeezes it. "I'm tired of pretending this doesn't matter." Linda wants to believe her. She wants to imagine a world where they could just be. But she's lived long enough to know that some worlds don't exist yet. Some truths require more courage than either of them can muster right now. "Just give me time," Linda says. "Let me figure out how to handle this without destroying both our careers." Tasha pulls her hand away. "You're ashamed," she says. Not a question. A fact landing hard between them. "I'm not ashamed of you," Linda says. "I'm terrified of losing you." "Then don't," Tasha says. "Stop being scared. Start being honest. Start being brave." But Linda has learned that bravery often looks like caution to people who haven't been hurt yet. She doesn't say that. Instead, she starts the car, and they drive back to the city in silence. because the strongest relationships are sometimes the ones that break quietly, piece by piece, until one day you realize there's nothing left to hold. The break room at the Orlando Police Department smells like burnt coffee and fluorescent bulb hum. It's where conversations happen when they shouldn't, where careers get whispered away, where secrets become currency. Officer Keisha Williams sits at the table with 3 other cops, and the conversation shifts the moment she walks in. Not toward Linda specifically, but the careful kind of shift that happens when people know they were just talking about you. Linda pours coffee she doesn't want into a mug she won't drink from, and takes it back to her desk. By the end of the week, she's heard the nickname. The old and the young. It's not said to her face, but she hears it. She sees the way officers look at her, the way they look at Tasha, the way they look at them together. The concern in their eyes is real, but so is the judgment. An anonymous complaint gets filed. Someone calls the captain and says they witnessed inappropriate conduct between a senior officer and a junior officer. The caller doesn't specify what that conduct was, doesn't give details, just enough to make the captain want answers, enough to make the department pay attention. Captain Williamson calls Linda into his office on a Thursday afternoon. Outside, the rain has started, that heavy Florida rain that comes down like a warning. "I got a call," he says. He's not angry. He's disappointed, which is worse. "About you and Officer Bryant. Someone says you two have been acting inappropriately, spending time together outside of work hours, taking the same shifts when other assignments are available." "Captain," Linda starts. "Let me finish," he says. "I don't know what's happening between you two. I don't want to know. But I need you to understand what happens if this becomes official. The department has policies. The city has laws about fraternization and power dynamics. If someone decides to pursue this formally, both of your careers could end. Not pause. End." Linda sits with that information settling into her bones. She's survived one fall already. She doesn't have another one in her. The fear moves through her like poison. That night, she calls Tasha and tells her they need to talk. They meet at Tasha's apartment. Tasha opens the door, still in her training clothes, her hair pulled back tight, her face still flushed from a workout. When she sees Linda's expression, something hardens in her jaw. She already knows. "We have to stop," Linda says. The words taste like copper. The department knows, or they're starting to know. Someone filed a complaint. Tasha's response is immediate and sharp. Then we admit it. We come clean. We say yes, we're together, and we deal with the consequences. "You don't understand what those consequences look like," Linda says. Her voice is controlled, but it's the control of someone holding on to a cliff edge. "I've been destroyed by this department once already. You're 23 years old. You think you can take that hit, but you can't. Trust me. I've seen what happens to young officers when the system decides their problems." "Then what?" Tasha says. "We just pretend? We just keep lying?" "We're careful," Linda says. "We're smart. We wait until the noise dies down, and then we figure out what comes next." But Tasha's eyes have changed. There's a hardness there now that wasn't there before. "You're ashamed," she says again. The same words she used weeks ago, but this time they stick different. This time they mean something different. "You're so afraid of what people will think that you'd rather lose me than risk being honest." "That's not fair," Linda says. "Fair?" Tasha's voice rises. "You know what's not fair. Loving someone and having to hide it. Having to pretend at work. Having to pretend at home. My mother doesn't know where I am when I'm with you. My friends don't know. I can't tell anyone about the person who makes me feel less alone, and that's not fair, Linda. That's cruel. Linda has no answer. Tasha is right, and that's the problem. There are no good choices here. There are only less bad choices, and they both require someone to sacrifice something they can't afford to lose. At the precinct, things shift. Linda and Tasha are scheduled on separate shifts now. Someone changed the rotation. They pass each other in the hallways, and they don't acknowledge each other. During briefings, Linda sits on one side of the room and Tasha on the other. It's professional. It's clean. It's also the worst thing that's happened to Linda since she arrived in Orlando. Officer Deshawn Morris notices, because Deshawn notices everything. He corners Linda in the parking lot one night. "So it's over," he says. It's not quite a question. "There was nothing to be over," Linda says. "Right," Deshawn says. "That's why you look like someone died. That's why the rookie doesn't smile anymore." Linda doesn't respond. She gets in her car and drives home, and all the while her phone stays dark because Tasha isn't texting her anymore. The silence is the loudest thing Linda has ever heard. Then, 3 nights later, at 2 a.m., Linda's phone buzzes. A text from Tasha. "We need to talk. Meet me at the usual place. Please." The parking lot behind the closed pharmacy is empty. Linda arrives first, at 2:47 a.m. The fluorescent lights are off, and the only light comes from the moon and the distant glow of the city. She sits in her car with the engine running, watching her breath fog the windshield. Tasha's car pulls in 5 minutes later. She gets out, and in the dark, Linda can barely see her face. But she can feel the tension rolling off her like heat. They don't hug. They don't touch. They just stand between the 2 cars, and the space between them might as well be miles. "I'm going to tell them," Tasha says. Her voice is steady, but it's the steadiness of someone who's made a decision and is committed to it. Consequences be damned. About us, about what we are. I'm going to tell the captain, and I'm going to tell them that I don't care what they do. I'm tired of being ashamed. I'm tired of being invisible. "Tasha, don't," Linda says. Everything in her is screaming at her to stop this, to find the words that will make Tasha see reason. "You don't understand what you're asking for." "I understand exactly what I'm asking for," Tasha says. "I'm asking for my life back. I'm asking for honesty. I'm asking for you to stop being so terrified that you're willing to destroy us both just to stay comfortable." They argue for 20 minutes. Their voices rise and fall, sharp with anger and pain. Linda tells Tasha that coming out in a police department is a death sentence for a young officer. Tasha tells Linda that staying hidden is a death sentence too, just a slower one. Neither of them is wrong. Both of them are terrified. Finally, Tasha says, "I have to go. I have a shift in an hour, and I need to think about this alone." Linda watches her get in her car. She wants to ask Tasha not to do anything rash. She wants to ask her to wait, to give her time, to trust that they'll figure something out together. But the words don't come. Instead, she just watches Tasha's car pull out of the parking lot and head toward the precinct. Linda doesn't follow her. She sits in the pharmacy lot for another hour, then drives home as the sky begins to lighten. When she gets back to her apartment, she calls Captain Williamson's voicemail and tells him she's taking a sick day. She needs time to think. She needs time to figure out how to fix this without destroying everything. By the time she gets the call from the precinct, it's already too late. It's 6:47 a.m. Captain Williamson's voice is controlled but tight. "Where is Officer Bryant?" he asks. Linda's heart stops. "What do you mean?" "She didn't show for her shift," the captain says. "Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Her apartment is empty. Her car is still parked at the precinct from yesterday afternoon. Linda, where is Tasha Bryant? Linda doesn't have an answer. She doesn't know that she'll spend the next 23 days looking for that answer. She doesn't know that the empty apartment, the missing car from the lot, the unanswered phone calls, all of it is a story that's already ended, even though nobody knows it yet. She doesn't know that Tasha is already gone, wrapped in silence and darkness at the bottom of a question nobody thought to ask. All Linda knows is that she was supposed to protect her. All Linda knows is that she failed, and in the next few weeks, she's going to discover that failure has a price, and that price is everything. Tasha's locker at the precinct stands open like a tomb. Her uniform is missing, her badge is gone, and the only thing left behind is the smell of her perfume, fading in the fluorescent light. A ghost of someone who was there, and then wasn't anymore. The autopsy room is cold. Fluorescent lights hum overhead like insects. Tasha's body lies on the steel table, naked except for the sheet covering her from waist down. The medical examiner, Dr. Marvin Elliott, moves with the precision of someone who has done this thousands of times. His gloved hands point to the bruises around her neck, purple turning blue turning black. The pattern tells a story. Strangulation. Not quick, not merciful. Linda stands in the observation room behind the glass. She hasn't slept. She hasn't eaten. She looks like someone whose entire world collapsed in the span of one day. Because it did. Captain Williamson stands next to her, his presence heavy as stone. They watch in silence as Dr. Elliott documents everything. The defensive wounds on Tasha's hands, the scratches on her forearms where she fought back, the trace of perfume on her collar, the same perfume Tasha wore every day. Evidence of intimate contact, evidence that whoever did this knew her. Time of death between 10 p.m. and midnight, Dr. Elliott says into the recorder. His voice is mechanical, emotionless. It has to be. Cause of death: asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. Victim shows signs of struggle and attempted defense. Toxicology pending. Linda's legs almost give out. She grabs the edge of the counter to steady herself. Next to her, Captain Williamson watches her watch the body. He's calculating something, weighing something, making decisions that will change everything. Outside the autopsy room, Detective Raymond Cross waits in the hallway with a folder in his hand. His grey eyes are sharp as glass. He's been asking questions. Hard questions. Where was Linda the night Tasha disappeared? Can anyone verify her whereabouts? What was the nature of her relationship with Officer Bryant? Why do the text messages between them show so much tension? Why did Linda volunteer to lead the search? Why did she seem so broken when Tasha was found? By 4 p.m., Linda is being escorted to an interrogation room. Not under arrest. Not yet. But not free either. The room smells like fear and old coffee. The table is metal. The walls are grey. A camera watches from the corner. Detective Cross sits across from her, with the case file open between them. "Walk me through the night," he says. Not unkind, just thorough. Linda's voice comes out hoarse. "I was home, alone. I got the call from Captain Williamson at 6:47 in the morning, telling me Tasha didn't show for her shift." "You were home," Cross repeats. "Anyone verify that?" "No, I live alone." Cross nods. He pulls out a piece of paper. Surveillance footage printout. Linda's car. Time stamp 11:47 p.m. Heading away from Lake Eola. "Your vehicle was registered leaving the area where Tasha's body was found at 11:47 p.m., Cross says. That's 54 minutes after her last text message to you. Linda's throat tightens. I wasn't. The text came in at 10:53. Cross continues, not looking up. You responded at 10:56. You said, and I quote, "We need to talk. Meet me at the usual place." What usual place? Linda doesn't answer. She knows that every word she says now will be recorded and played back in a courtroom, analyzed by lawyers and prosecutors and judges who will look for guilt in her hesitation. She knows that loving someone in the wrong way can look exactly like murdering them if you tell the story right. Linda, Cross says, leaning back in his chair, help me understand. Because right now, the evidence says you were at that lake. Your car was there. Your text messages show conflict with the victim. You led the search effort, which sometimes happens when someone knows what they're looking for. The forensics team found trace DNA under her fingernails. We're running it now. If it's yours, I didn't kill her, Linda says. Her voice cracks. I loved her. But saying it out loud in this room, under this fluorescent light, with a detective who barely believes her, it sounds like motive. It sounds like obsession. It sounds like a lie. Detective Cross opens a second folder. We found something else, he says. He slides a photograph across the table. Tasha's phone. Recovered from the water. Waterlogged. Cracked. But still holding data. There's a voice memo on here. Time-stamped the night she died. Want to hear it? He doesn't wait for permission. He plays the recording. Tasha's voice, frightened and urgent, fills the small room. If anything happens to me, tell them Linda knows why. She knows about the harassment. She knows I was going to the police. She knows everything. But she's scared. She's so scared of what will happen to us if anyone finds out about... The recording cuts off. The file was deleted after that point. But the damage is done. One sentence, one phrase, one piece of evidence that turns love into motive. Detective Cross turns off the recorder. So, he says, Linda knows about something. Something about harassment. Something about police. And something happened to Tasha that night. Something that Linda is connected to. Am I understanding this correctly? Linda sits in the grey room and realizes she's been set up. Not by Tasha. Never by Tasha. But by the system itself. By the machinery of justice that grinds forward, regardless of truth. By the way love looks suspicious under bright lights. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that inspires and challenges everything you thought you knew about justice. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what you think happened that night. Help us find the truth together. 48 hours in an interrogation room. 3 different detectives. The same questions asked 17 different ways. Linda's apartment is being searched. Her car is being examined for fibers and DNA. Her phone records are being pulled, texts analyzed, call logs scrutinized. By the end of the second day, they have enough circumstantial evidence to charge her. But they don't. Not yet. They're waiting for the DNA results. Linda is suspended from the department pending investigation. Her badge is taken. Her gun is taken. She becomes what she's always feared, invisible. A ghost haunting a police precinct where nobody will look at her anymore. Her attorney, Margaret Vasquez, is sharp and exhausted. She sits across from Linda in the visitation room and lays out the truth with no mercy. The evidence against you is circumstantial but compelling, Margaret says. Your car was at the scene. Your text messages show conflict and emotional intensity. They found trace of your perfume on her body. The voice memo suggests you knew she was planning something dangerous. And most critically, Linda, they found your DNA under her fingernails. Linda's world tilts. That's not possible. We didn't. I didn't fight with her physically. Not like that. But you were intimate with her, Margaret says. It's not a question. Physically intimate. That's how your DNA gets under her nails. She scratches you in an embrace. She has you under her nails for innocent reasons. But to a jury, if they don't know about your relationship, if they see it as something hidden and wrong, it becomes evidence of violence. Linda puts her head in her hands. She's being destroyed by the very thing she was trying to protect. The relationship she kept secret is now the rope they're using to hang her. Meanwhile, Detective Cross is pursuing other leads. He's been talking to officers at the precinct. He's been looking at Tasha's training records. He's been asking questions about who supervised her, who gave her assignments, who had access to her schedule. And one name keeps coming up. Lieutenant Marcus Burke. 22 years on the force. Respected, connected, powerful. Cross calls in one of Tasha's training officers, a young cop named Jalaiah Thompson. Did Tasha ever mention feeling uncomfortable around anyone? Cross asks. Anyone who made her nervous, anyone who crossed a line? Jalaiah hesitates. She knows about the code, the unspoken agreement that you don't throw your brothers and sisters in blue under the bus. But she also knows that something is wrong with what's happening to Linda Moore. There was something with Lieutenant Burke, Jalaiah finally says. Tasha mentioned it once when we were in the locker room. She said he had made a comment to her that was inappropriate. Something about her body, the way she moved. She said she didn't report it because she didn't want to cause problems. Cross leans forward. When was this? Maybe 6 weeks before she disappeared, Jalaiah says. Around late July. Cross stands up. He leaves the interrogation room and walks straight to the surveillance tape vault. He requests footage from the training facility from that time period. He spends 4 hours watching video until he finds it. Late July. Lieutenant Burke's hand on Tasha's shoulder during a training exercise. Not violent, not overtly threatening, but lingering. Possessive. The kind of touch that makes it clear that power is being established. Cross pulls Burke's file. Clean record, multiple commendations, praised by 3 different captains. Married, 2 kids, a man who looks like he has everything to lose, which means he has everything to protect. But then Cross finds something else, a note in Tasha's personnel file, dated August 3rd, just 3 weeks before she disappeared. A handwritten note from Tasha saying she wanted to file a formal complaint against a supervisor, but needed time to gather evidence first. The note was never processed, never forwarded to internal affairs, never acted on. It was filed away in a drawer, waiting for Tasha to follow up, waiting for Tasha to take the next step. But Tasha never got the chance. Cross walks into Captain Williamson's office and sets the note on his desk. How did this end up in the filing system instead of going to IA? Cross asks. Williamson looks at the note. His face goes pale. I didn't know this existed, he says, but even as he says it, both men know that's not quite an answer. Who else had access to her file? Cross asks. Williamson doesn't respond immediately. He's calculating. He's realizing that something in his department has rotted from the inside out. Burke, Williamson finally says. As a supervisor, Burke would have access to trainee files. Cross feels the pieces shifting. So Burke knew Tasha was planning to report him, he says slowly. Burke knew she had evidence. Burke knew she was going to go to internal affairs. And then Tasha disappeared. Williamson nods. The implications are massive. The corruption reaches higher than just one predatory lieutenant. It reaches into the chain of command. It reaches into the system itself. "We need to bring him in for questioning," Williamson says. But when they go to Burke's house the next morning, the house is empty. No car in the driveway. No answer at the door. Burke's wife says he left 3 days ago for a work conference. His cell phone is off. His credit cards haven't been used. By noon, the department puts out a bolo. Burke is considered a person of interest in the murder of Officer Tasha Bryant. Linda, sitting in her lawyer's office, learns the news from the television. She watches as Detective Cross gives a press statement saying they've identified a new lead in the case. She watches as Burke's photo appears on the screen. She realizes that everything she's been blamed for, everything she's been suspended for, everything that's been holding her in this wing of suspicion and fear, it might not have been her at all. But knowing the truth and proving it are two different things. And Burke is already gone. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The truth is out there, but it's dangerous. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if the system you trusted decided to destroy you? The search for Lieutenant Marcus Burke lasts for 14 days. His name goes out to every airport, every border crossing, every agency that tracks movement across state lines. He becomes a ghost moving through the country, one step ahead of the law. But ghosts always leave traces. A credit card transaction in Miami, a cash withdrawal in Jacksonville, a sighting at a gas station heading south toward the Keys. The trail leads everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. But Detective Cross is patient. He's building a case against Burke, and every piece of evidence points to premeditation, calculated, controlled. The actions of a man who had everything planned in advance. Forensic analysis of Tasha's phone reveals more than just the voice memo. There are deleted text messages between Burke and Tasha, dated August 5th, the night she disappeared. Burke asking her to meet him at the lake. Burke saying he wanted to talk about the complaint. Burke saying he could help her if she just gave him a chance to explain. The messages were deleted from Tasha's phone, but they were recovered from the server. They paint a picture of manipulation, of a superior officer using his position to pressure a young subordinate into meeting him alone at night in a secluded location. Cross also discovers that Burke had access to the surveillance system at the precinct. He had the authorization codes. He could view footage, could request specific timestamps, could theoretically alter what was recorded. The surveillance tape that placed Linda's car at Lake Eola that came from Burke's request. Cross pulls the original files and finds evidence of manipulation. The timestamp has been edited. The original video shows Linda's car heading away from the lake at 10:42 p.m., not 11:47 p.m. The departure happened before Tasha even texted her about meeting. Someone changed the evidence. Someone with access. Someone with motive. Burke fled the country 3 days after Burke's name went public. Airport records show him boarding a flight from Miami to Montego Bay using a fake passport. From there, the trail goes cold. He could be anywhere in the Caribbean. He could be anywhere in the world. And without his physical presence, the case becomes harder. Prosecution becomes complicated. Justice becomes uncertain. But the most important evidence comes from an unexpected source. An anonymous whistleblower sends Detective Cross a package. Inside is a flash drive containing unedited surveillance footage, original files, timestamps untouched. The video shows Lieutenant Burke at Lake Eola on the night Tasha died. 11:15 p.m. Burke walking toward the water. Burke waiting. Burke meeting Tasha as she arrives in her personal vehicle. The two of them talking, their voices inaudible on the footage, but their body language telling the story. Tasha standing firm, Burke's movements becoming aggressive, Burke's hands moving toward her neck. Then the footage cuts off. The camera angle shifts, but the damage is done. The evidence is undeniable. Lieutenant Burke murdered Officer Tasha Bryant, and he did it to protect himself from her report. He did it to silence her before she could destroy his career. The anonymous package includes a note. No signature, no identifying information, but the handwriting matches someone in the department, someone who had access to the files, someone who decided that the truth was more important than the code. Later, Cross will learn that it was Officer Jalaiah Thompson who leaked the evidence. She couldn't prove it directly, but he knows. She violated every protocol. She risked her entire career. But she did it because she couldn't live with watching an innocent woman be destroyed by a guilty system. Linda Moore is officially cleared of all charges. Her suspension is lifted. Her badge is returned. But nothing is the same. The department issues a statement saying the investigation revealed systemic failures and opportunities for improvement. They don't say corruption. They don't say that Burke was using his position to prey on young officers. They don't say that senior leadership failed to act on a complaint that could have saved Tasha's life. Instead, they call a press conference where Captain Williamson says, "The Orlando Police Department regrets the loss of Officer Bryant and acknowledges the difficult journey that Detective Moore has endured. We are committed to ensuring that this tragedy leads to meaningful change in our protocols and our culture." Meaningful change. As if words can fix what's been broken. Subscribe and tell us in the comments. Is justice ever truly served when the guilty escape and the innocent are damaged? When systems designed to protect us fail, what do we do? What would you do? 3 months later, the department has undergone significant changes, new protocols for handling complaints, new oversight on surveillance access, new training on abuse of power, but protocols don't bring people back. They don't heal the damage that's already been done. They don't make a young officer come back to life. Linda sits at Tasha's grave on a Thursday morning. The stone is simple. Tasha Marie Bryant, 1992-2024. Beloved officer. Bright spirit taken too soon. Linda traces the letters with her finger. The marble is cool, indifferent to grief, indifferent to the woman kneeling in front of it. "I'm sorry," Linda whispers. The words are inadequate, but they're all she has. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry I was scared. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what was coming. I'm sorry that being honest about who we are cost you everything." The wind moves through the cemetery, rustling the palms that line the pathways. A bird calls somewhere in the distance. Life continues, indifferent to the fact that Tasha no longer lives it. This is the cruelest part of death. The world keeps going. The sun rises and sets. People go to work and come home and eat dinner and fall asleep. But one person doesn't. One person is frozen in time. One person will never be anything other than 24 years old. Linda stands and looks out across the cemetery. Hundreds of graves, hundreds of stories of people who were here and then weren't. She thinks about Tasha's mother, who has to live with the knowledge that her daughter is buried in this place. She thinks about Tasha's friends who will never get to celebrate with her or mourn with her or just sit with her on a Tuesday afternoon. She thinks about the life that Tasha was supposed to have and all the possibilities that died with her. Later that day, Linda turns in her resignation, effective immediately. She tells Captain Williamson that she can't work in a system that protects predators and destroys innocents. She tells him that the uniform doesn't mean what it used to mean. She tells him that redemption doesn't exist in a place where truth is expendable. Williamson doesn't try to convince her to stay. He understands. He's been grappling with his own complicity. He signed off on the filing system that buried Tasha's complaint. He didn't ask enough questions. He didn't push hard enough when things didn't add up. He's going to carry that knowledge for the rest of his life. Linda packs up her desk. She takes nothing but a photo of Tasha in her training uniform, smiling at the camera like the world was going to be kind to her, like life was going to be fair, like the people she trusted would protect her. Officer Jalaiah Thompson approaches her as Linda carries the box out of the precinct. "For what it's worth," Jalaiah says, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't do more earlier. I'm sorry I was scared." Linda sets the box down and looks at Jalaiah. Really looks at her. She sees herself 30 years ago. Young, idealistic, trying to figure out how to survive in a system that wasn't designed for people like them. "You did enough," Linda says. "You did more than enough. You risked everything to tell the truth. That matters." Jalaiah nods, but there are tears in her eyes. She knows that the truth cost her too. The other officers know she was the whistleblower. The looks have changed. The camaraderie has shifted. She's been marked as someone who doesn't follow the code. Someone who prioritizes honesty over loyalty. Someone who can't be trusted. This is the price of speaking truth in a place built on silence. Linda drives away from the Orlando Police Department for the last time. She takes Route 4 heading out of the city toward the coast, toward anywhere that isn't here. The sun is setting, painting the sky orange and purple and red. She turns on the radio and catches a news report about a new initiative to improve police department transparency. New cameras, new accountability measures, new promises that never quite fix the underlying problem. She turns off the radio. The silence that follows is heavy but also clean. For the first time in months, Linda breathes without the weight of the department pressing down on her chest. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Follow Linda's journey as she searches for redemption in a world that destroyed everything she built. Share your story in the comments. Tell us about a time when you had to choose between loyalty and truth. Tell us how you survived. Linda rents a small house on the edge of Cocoa Beach, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that overlooks the Atlantic, a back porch where she can sit in the morning and watch the waves move in and out, constant and eternal. She finds work as a private investigator, pro bono cases, people who can't afford lawyers, cases that fall through the cracks of the justice system. This is her redemption, not erasing what happened, never that, but maybe using what she learned, what she lost, what she survived to help others who have been left behind. 6 months after Tasha's murder is solved, an extradition request is filed for Lieutenant Marcus Burke. He's been living in the Cayman Islands under an assumed name. Interpol tracked him down. He's being brought back to face trial. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Justice, in its imperfect way, is being served. But Linda doesn't go to the trial. She can't watch him sit in court and explain himself. She can't listen to his lawyers argue that he was a good man who made one mistake. She can't participate in a system that will drag out proceedings and appeals and legal maneuvers while Tasha remains dead. Instead, Linda visits Tasha's grave again. This time she brings flowers, not roses, not anything pretentious, just wild flowers from the side of the road. Simple, honest, the kind of flowers that grow without anyone asking them to, without anyone protecting them, without anyone caring about them, flowers that bloom and die and feed the earth that comes after. Linda kneels and places the flowers at the base of the stone. "He's going to prison," she says. "He's going to spend the rest of his life thinking about what he did. But that doesn't bring you back. Nothing brings you back." The wind moves through the cemetery again. A sound that could be forgiveness. A sound that could be the earth accepting what's lost and moving on. "I loved you," Linda says. "I still love you. I will always love you. And I'm sorry that in a world that seems designed to crush people like us, I couldn't find a way to protect you from the worst parts. I'm sorry that I chose fear over honesty. I'm sorry that I was broken in all the ways that mattered." Linda stays at the grave until the sun begins to set. Until the light turns golden and the shadows grow long. Until the day transforms into something that looks like peace, but is really just the passage of time, making everything slightly more bearable. As she drives away from the cemetery, Linda's radio picks up a breaking news report. The captain of the Orlando Police Department has announced his resignation, effective immediately. In his resignation letter, he acknowledged his failure to act on Officer Bryant's complaint and his role in allowing a predatory officer to remain in a position of power. He's taking responsibility, not enough to undo the damage, but enough to acknowledge that something was wrong, enough to admit that the system failed. Linda doesn't feel vindicated. She doesn't feel that everything worked out. She feels the absence of Tasha like a weight she'll carry forever. But she also feels something else, a small seed of hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth does matter. Maybe it takes time. Maybe it requires sacrifice. Maybe it costs more than anyone should have to pay. But it matters. That night, Linda sits on her porch and watches the ocean. She thinks about Tasha. She thinks about the woman Tasha was supposed to become. She thinks about the career Tasha was supposed to have, and the life she was supposed to live, and the love she was supposed to find with someone who could be honest about it. She thinks about all the officers, past and present, who have to hide who they are to survive in a system that claims to serve justice, but often serves only itself. She thinks about the cost of silence. She thinks about the price of love in a world that isn't ready to recognize it. And then she makes a decision. She starts writing, not a memoir, not a revenge narrative, just the truth. The whole truth. From the beginning of her time in Miami to the day she left Orlando. She writes about corruption and courage and the ordinary people who have to navigate systems designed to break them. She writes about Tasha. She writes about what it means to love someone and lose them. She writes about redemption as something imperfect and incomplete, but worth pursuing anyway. A year later, Linda's book is published. The Weight of Silence, one detective's journey through love, loss, and the broken system that failed them both. It becomes a bestseller. It sparks conversations about police corruption, about workplace abuse, about the treatment of LGBTQ officers in law enforcement, about the ways that hidden love can become hidden violence when systems are designed to keep people invisible. Linda does interviews. She speaks at police departments. She advocates for systemic change. She uses her platform to lift up the voices of officers like Jalaiah Thompson, who risked everything to tell the truth. She honors the memory of Tasha Bryant by making sure that her death means something, that it creates change, that it opens doors for officers who come after to be honest about who they are. Is it enough? No. Nothing is enough when someone is dead. Nothing is enough when the cost of truth was someone's life. But it's something. It's the only thing Linda can do now. It's the only path forward that doesn't require her to look away. The camera pulls back from Linda's porch. The ocean stretches out before her, endless and moving. A radio plays somewhere inside the house. The news continues its endless cycle of stories. Death and justice and corruption and hope, all of it intertwined, all of it part of the endless river that carries everyone forward, whether they want to go or not. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that demands to be told. A story of courage, a story of love, a story of people who chose truth over comfort, even when the cost was everything. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what you think about Linda's journey. Tell us about the times you've had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting others. Tell us how you survived. Tell us what keeps you moving forward. Tell us that we're not alone in this, because that's what stories like this are for now. Therefore reminding us that we're not alone. Therefore showing us that redemption is possible, even when it looks nothing like we expected. Therefore honoring those we've lost. And therefore building a world where the next person doesn't have to make the same impossible choices. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of this community that refuses to let the truth disappear. The story of Linda Moore and Tasha Bryant deserves to be remembered. Their story deserves to change things. And your voice, your comment, your share, your presence here, that matters too.